Hey friends, it's our last installment for 2021 of Backyard Business, and we are turning this into this. Hey, I'm Kristen with Shifting Roots. If you've been following me over the last year, the Backyard Business series is where I've been documenting my journey of how I sold flowers for the first year and I was able to make almost $5,000. So I'm $400 short from $5,000 and I am determined that I'm going to sell that much during this last Christmas sale so that I can say that big fancy number. So for this last sale of the year, I am selling wreaths in both a fuller style and a minimal style, planters, and indoor centerpieces. I've structured my sale so that people can do both pre-orders and there's going to be a week where there'll just be a pop-up sale. This is all new to me. I did not sell any of my stuff last year. I just made it for myself and friends and family. So I don't really know how my customers are going to react to this. I've already done some sort of just like behind the scenes, showing them what kind of things I'm making. And the response has been really good. People are loving what's coming out. So hopefully that will translate into sales, but I'm going to take you on the journey with me. So first up on the journey, we need to collect all the supplies, and the bulk of that is happening at the acreage. So let's take a look over there and see how that went. Hey friends, today we are harvesting for my Christmas sale. So I'm going to take you through a little bit and show you what I'm harvesting and sort of what I'm looking for. If at all possible, if you're doing this, try and wait for a day that it's as close to 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit as possible. Just makes for a lot more pleasant picking. I have no idea how much exactly I'm going to be selling this year, but I really want to try and harvest a goodly amount so I don't have to come back to the acreage and I don't have to be harvesting in any surprise -30 or anything like that. All right, let's take a look at what's good to harvest. So harvesting for Christmas wreaths and stuff can feel tricky because at this time of year, it feels like there's not really a lot of color anywhere. So you have to get creative. I'll just show you a few things around here that I think are some unconventional color things. So I don't know how well you can see it with the camera, but do you notice in the center, right there, there are some trees that are kind of red looking. I think those are a willow of some sort. And those are not on our property, but we do have something that I'm pretty sure is the same thing. So over this direction, I think are our willows, and they just don't look as red because I'm a lot closer to them. When you get closer up, you can see kind of how they have these reddish tones. Like look at the red over here in this stick. And then you've got kind of a reddy orange color coming here. When you look at the tips of the branches, these are kind of a reddish brown color. So I'm looking for anything like this, and I'm also picking the most colorful ones that I see. These willows are actually a treasure trove of color. Like, look how bright and cheerful this is. So I've picked actually quite a few of these, and some of them even get red. I'll show you those in my bundle I already picked. So look at these ones that I was able to grab. Like this is such a rich orangey red color. This one here is quite red, kind of turns to black. So if you really just look, you have a lot more to work with than you think. These trees are really lovely for wreath making, and sometimes you even get the bits with pine cones on, which is like an extra bonus. My mother-in-law really loves this tree though, so I have to ask her if I'm allowed to pick from this one or not, but if I am, score. So even though this section of the yard probably doesn't look like much, there's actually quite a few hidden gems in here. So these Saskatoon berries have kind of a reddish tinge to them, so I'm picking those. Then we have these nuisance trees over here, which are gonna get cut out anyway, so we might as well harvest them. I've already taken out a few of the nuisance trees that are thinner. So like this was a little bit too big for my loppers, but something like this that's standing in its way, I've cut those out and I'm going to use those in planters. I have no idea how popular my planters are going to be, so I was a little more conservative in collecting these. So how I'm cutting my evergreens is not really the way that you should be cutting evergreens, but these evergreens over here, they were planted way too close together. So one of our plans is that this summer, these will probably go, or maybe I'll just leave them and cut down one each year for my wreath sales. I don't know, but either way, these are not gonna stay. So please don't cut your evergreens like I'm cutting mine unless you want to get rid of them. So it's a few days later and now we're into the design phase. So as I had mentioned previously, I made 2 wreaths already and the response has been really good. So now today I'm just gonna let my creative juices flow and see what else I can make. So even though I'm really excited about my sale, there's 2 things that I'm kind of worried about. The first one is that this creative idea I had of using basically all Saskatchewan products except for the red bits. So using dried flowers, using trees that we have here, they just tend to last longer than the stuff that's shipped out, even if they're not quite as pretty. But anyway, the problem with this is that if I'm using dried flowers, they require a certain type of care where you don't have moisture on them, you spray them with hairspray, you keep them out of direct sun, and then I have my trees which need water. So I don't know, maybe this was a terrible idea, but they look pretty. So I guess we'll see how they last. And I guess I'll just have to be open with customers and let them know that this is the deal and this is what could happen. The other thing I'm a little bit nervous about is the pricing of everything, because my customers have generally been buying stuff in like the $15 to $50 range. And I haven't had many people in the $50 range. It's mostly that like 20, 25, maybe 30. That's sort of what people were wanting to spend in the summer. But now I'm going to be coming to them with wreaths and they're all going to be in the $50 to probably $125 range. And if you're not familiar with live wreaths or have never tried this before, that probably sounds crazy to be charging so much. But when you figure out the pricing, you figure out how much material is going into those wreaths. And let me tell you, it is a lot. Plus, you know, the dried stuff, I didn't dry any of my own stuff. I needed every single bloom I had coming to me. So I've purchased all of my dried flowers from Monica over at 316. So, you know, there's that cost on top of it, which, like, please don't get me wrong. I'm definitely happy to pay and to support another woman. But, you know, that's the reality. It adds to the cost. And then you have your wreath frame. You have to consider the time that you've spent harvesting, all of that stuff, the time that you spent driving to Michael's or Dollarama or whatever to get your ribbon, your wreath forms, whatnot. Suddenly $50 to $125 is actually a pretty fair price. So I guess we'll just see what my customers think about it. All right, so let's take a look at some of the materials and my setup that I have here. So first of all, this green tarp, definitely not aesthetic in the slightest, but when you have stuff that's been out in the snow and there's lots of melting water, a tarp is actually a really smart idea, even if it's not very pretty. I do have some red stuff that I have saved from last year. I mean, eventually I would like to be able to dry red things and not use this stuff at all. But for now, I feel like as long as we're reusing from year to year, it's still good. We have some dried oranges, grapefruits, some dried mandarin oranges. These are pine cones I had made as picks last year. I've reused some of my wire from last year's wreaths. And then I have the dried elements from Monica. So we have the frosted explosion grass and cress, some status in white is beautiful, lots of sweet Annie, some dried grass. I don't remember the name, unfortunately. I also have a bit of cedar. Like, obviously I'm not going to use this stuff. I've just, you know, we take the green stuff out. I have some cut up sticks that I'm reusing from last year, and of course our evergreens. Okay, we've got a lot of wreaths and things to make, so let's get to it. First job is chopping up that greenery. Things about using trees from here is like, these trees are not the greatest. I mean, Look at these tips here. They're already starting to kind of dry out and they don't look great. So I just don't want to give that to customers. If it was my own wreath, I might do it, but what do you do? So the first wreath I'm making is actually part of a collaboration with Melrose Place YXC. If you've been watching the series, you might remember that I collaborated with them a couple times during the summer. And so for this time, what I'm doing is I'm making them a wreath for their front door, and in exchange, they're gonna let me take some pictures of me and my products so that I have Christmas photos. For them, I'm thinking more of a neutral palette using like these whites and dried stuff. Maybe I'll put the twigs in there for them too, a few oranges, pine cones. We will see. I've got this wreath form. I actually got this at the dollar store. You can get them at Michael's. They do tend to sell out pretty quick this time of year. Got my trusty wire, and let's make something gorgeous. Hey friends, another day, another creation. So yesterday I only managed to make one wreath before it was time to pick up my kids from school and daycare. So we're back at it again, and today I'm gonna work on some centerpieces. So I'm planning on doing a large outdoor planter out of a bucket, and then a smaller bucket that's meant for indoors, as well as sort of an old-fashioned centerpiece that would be like low to the table. So we'll see how those go. I'm filling up my outdoor planter vessel with snow. It's actually fantastic for doing outdoor planters, and this is free. So even better, we've got the same evergreens that we're using for everything, some of those nonsense trees that you saw me cut, a few fake things from the dollar store, and then a couple of dried flowers that I think would look good in there. I'm actually feeling pretty pleased with how this is kind of all coming together. I think maybe I will just add a bow right there, and then I think we're done. There we go. I think this just sort of ties in with this red and the red that I was trying to get in from the Orac just a little better, and I'm very happy with that. So now to go outside and take some pictures of it. I'm really thankful that planter didn't take me oodles and oodles of time. I've got to say the wreaths take way longer, especially if they're the full ones. So I hope I sell lots of planters because they're far quicker to make. All right, now we're gonna do the mini version for the table. So let's see what happens. This arrangement is gonna be indoors. So we're gonna use just some crumpled up chicken wire instead of the snow. Sorry I didn't do very much filming about my process making this, but you know what? For a first try, it's sort of an idea. This feels kind of fun, so I'm gonna go with it. Maybe I'll trim some of these edges so they're not quite so wild, but I'm pretty pleased on the whole. Last one, and this is the one that I'm probably the most nervous about and not sure if it's actually gonna work. So I really wanted to try to get away from using floral foam. I'm going to do a low one in a dish like this with chicken wire put in, but I think I'm also going to have to maybe duct tape that chicken wire in or somehow secure it into the bowl, because I can just see everything kind of toppling over and out, and we definitely want to avoid that. I know one thing some people do is put moss in their chicken wire. I just don't have moss. Maybe I could put some evergreens or something, little clips, bits and bobs. I guess we'll see how it turns out. So I've taped the chicken wire to the sides here, but I still think this could be a terrible mistake. right, my prototype is done. Fairly happy with how this turned out. The only thing I wish is I had maybe some gold sparkles on here because this looks a little dark and just gets a little bit lost. But otherwise, I think this was pretty much the vibe I was going for. So unfortunately, we've come to a roadblock in this whole wreath making thing. I had a lovely pile of greens. You saw me harvest them. It should have lasted me quite a while. And unfortunately, the neighborhood's rabbits, cats, dogs, I don't know, maybe one, maybe all three, decided that that's where they needed to pee. And so I went to make arrangements today and I thought, oh, okay, well, some of them weren't touched by the pee. It should be fine. Brought them indoors. They smelled like pee. I can't use them. So I've bought a Christmas tree. Also, why am I filming this in the dark? Because I have orders tomorrow that people are coming to pick up, which I was supposed to make with those things that the animals peed on. So here we are. Bad, grainy footage, late night Christmas tree run. Let's go. So I'm really glad and all that I was able to troubleshoot, and like this greenery will be really beautiful. But I gotta say that like living in the city, I feel like that weird neighbor. I'm the person going out at 9 p.m. clipping from a Christmas tree that's just sort of parked right outside my door like an absolute weirdo. But thankfully my neighbors love me. Anyway, I guess enough complaining. It's time to definitely get to work. Well, it's well after 11. The table looks like an absolute bomb, but at least I got 2 more planters done. I'll just have to do the rest in the morning. Hey friends, so unlike some of my other sales with fresh flowers, which, usually last about a week, this sale, because of the nature of how these greens can last for a lot longer, is actually going to go on for about 3 weeks. So normally I like to film all the way from the beginning to the end, but I think this time, just because I've got so much going on with the sale of our house, just sort of adding on top of that regular Christmas stress and business in general and stuff, I think I'm just going to end it here. So let me tell you about how the sale went so far, how much I've made, and then in chats with other flower farmers, sort of what type of money you could maybe possibly expect someday if you take this on. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Christmas tree. You saw my footage from last night where I was just so disgusted with those neighborhood animals for ruining my greens, which I harvested. But you know what? I actually like using the Christmas tree. It does go against my values a little bit because I wanted to use like all Saskatchewan grown things. And I'm like almost 100% guaranteed this tree is not Saskatchewan grown. But you know what, for the price, how many things I was able to make with it, the needles are really nice and soft, a lot nicer to work with than that blue spruce, and the convenience of just setting the tree up on the side of the house and just going outside and cutting a few things from it as I need it. I might do Christmas trees in the future. It's a really nice option and you get quite a lot of stuff out of it. So the next thing is I chatted a little bit earlier about how I was a little bit surprised where the things that I put out and the things that people liked were very different. So notes for next year, definitely do a more woodsy vibe for something, and the people want red. So I know I'm definitely gonna bump up my red next year. I have some plans for that, which eventually I'll share with you. I also, just as like an aside, made a planter that was in rose gold colors, and that got a lot of likes on Instagram. Still nobody buying it, but that's okay because it's for my mom, so you can't have that one. But makes me think that maybe in a week or so, just sort of once the house is ready for sale and I feel like I have a few beans, I'm gonna take all of my supplies that I still have left, make up a couple of wreaths and planters, and then just do one last pop-up sale with that and see how it goes. But other than that, I think I'm just gonna have to cut this sale short. I'm getting a little stressed out. Like, it's a lot to try and sell house. Anyway, last thing. So how much have I made so far? Well, I definitely hit my $400 that I was looking to make. And I'm gonna guess that with like maybe a few extra sales, maybe I can move that up to like, you know, another 200 or 300 in sales. So that's actually really small potatoes. So I was talking to another flower farmer who did this last year and then was offering this type of sale again. And she said that she was able to make like $4,000 last year. And this year she's already at 7,000 and she's not done. So I think it's one of those things that if you get known in your area for a certain style of planter and wreath and, you know, your people like it, I think this can be a very, very profitable way. Now we got to talk markup, right? And sales and stuff. So this sale had the most input of costs out of all of my sales, probably other than like the bucket sales, because those I was buying like a table and buckets and things that I didn't have. But for this one, I'm buying like the tree. I'm buying lots of ribbons, lots of bows, lots of like red little sticks. I bought dried flowers from Monica. And so this year I feel like I'm not actually going to make a ton of profit just because I bought so many supplies trying to figure out what people liked, and I was wrong more than I usually am. So like, I don't know, I might just break even on this one, but I am okay with that just because for me and my business, so much of my business is online. So even just having that portfolio, being able to talk about the experience and just make a few sales, like for me, that's fine. But I think if you're doing this as you are only a flower farmer, I would just be aware of that. So maybe only make your offerings to like one or two things and one or two colors and start there and then see how it goes. I hate to advise somebody to spend like as much money as I did on all my materials and stuff and not having anything to show for it. You know what I mean? That is everything for this video. I'm so glad you joined me. This is the last in the backyard business series for 2021. I am coming back with season 2 in 2022. We've got lots of fun things in store. If you like this kind of content, please give it a subscribe. It definitely helps the channel. You can also check me out on Instagram and Facebook. I show up there almost daily, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye, friends.